What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. So in today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys and give you my opinion on how you can balance lifting weights with running, which is effectively what we would now call a hybrid way of training and essentially doing kind of both of these things, which often they can be a little bit opposing. And I think sometimes we have kind of, the runner camp, and then you've effectively got the weightlifting camp, gym bros that never set foot into running, and you've got your runners that don't really want to go in the gym. And what we're seeing now is that hybrid is becoming incredibly popular. People are wanting to do both. They're wanting to be able to run, they're wanting to be able to swim, they're wanting to be able to lift weights, look good, feel good, be strong, and be ready for anything, effectively making yourself harder to kill. Now, I love the hybrid style of training, and it's something that I've done probably for the last 18 months or so. I mean, I've always been into sport. I've always ran, I've always played team sports, and I've always done that kind of anyway. And then getting into the gym, obviously then that took a lot of my focus in terms of building muscle and kind of getting my physique to the place that it is now. However, I got really back into my running, I'd probably say about 18 months ago. Actually, firstly was in the lockdown, and then I kind of pulled back a little bit for maybe a year, and now I'm really back into it. I think now, as I say, hybrid is really getting a name for itself. It's incredibly popular. It's kind of the new trend that people are really wanting to kind of excel with. So now I'm really enjoying balancing my running and also doing that alongside the lifting of weights as well, which is something that I'll always do. That's engraved into me now. I love training, I love lifting weights, but I also love staying super fit as well. So, I'm not an expert runner by any means. I'm a good runner and I can hold my own. I mean, I've done a sub 20-minute 5K, 19 minutes 30 is kind of my maximal time for that, which I still would love to improve, as I'm striving for a sub 18-minute 5K at hopefully some point. My 10K time is, again, it's just over 40 minutes. And again, I'm hoping I can get into a sub 40-minute 10K at some point. And I've also boxed off 2 half marathons as well, which I did at the start of 2023, which again was incredible, and I'm really pleased with that achievement to have done that as well. I did the second one literally in the space of like 2 weeks after completing my first one. I was going for a sub 90 minute on the first one. I was just short, and then the second one, again, not far off hitting. So that's something that I know is a bit of unfinished business, as I would also love to reach that goal of getting a sub 90 minute half marathon time, and also then obviously completing the full marathon as well, which I would have done if I hadn't have obviously got myself injured and obviously had a little bit of a setback on that. So as I said, I'm not an incredible runner, but I'm a good runner, and I like to think I'm in pretty good shape as well. So I feel like I've got a good stance to be able to talk about essentially just how I would balance my training when it comes to hybrid, and how I would basically still be able to work in both these areas, okay? Build muscle, look good, feel good, and run at the same time. Now, the first thing that you need to think about is planning, scheduling, and really thinking about how we can create a training split that effectively is going to be able to allow us to excel in both. Now, unless you're really training towards maybe like a marathon or something like that, then I think this split works for most people. And this is what I recommend to a lot of our clients that are coming on board and effectively wanting to run as well and wanting to keep that style up. And that effectively breaks down into 4 weight sessions per week, and then effectively 2 runs per week. Okay? Now, this is what I've always done. In terms of the weight sessions, typically, if this is speaking to a guy, I would do a push day on Monday, I would do a pull day on Tuesday. I would probably take Wednesday as a cardio day, so I would do a 5K run, and then Thursday I would go into a lower body day, and then Friday effectively I would go into an upper body day, with a Saturday then being a long run. Okay, so that's how I would approach training, with Sunday then being a rest day. This split's what I've been following for a long time, and I find it works incredibly well. I'm able to progress on all my big lifts. I'm able to prioritize, a lot of the compound movements. I'm able to really work my upper body. For me, my legs have always been a strong point, so hitting them once per week is enough. I don't need to do them more than that. But at the same time, I feel like I'm always in a position where I'm able to excel with the running as well. Like, I've had some really good times in my 5K recently, running around the marina, and that's again from hitting that split on a Wednesday where I'm able to go and do that. I feel like with weight training, I think 2 days on, if you're training hard, is enough really, where you would probably need a rest from effectively lifting weights anyway and putting that kind of stress on your body. So to then kind of balance that into like a running workout instead, I find works incredibly well in terms of actually having a bit of a rest, and then, effectively then being able to go and push again the next day. I push into a leg day. Then in terms of the weekend, the reason why I personally like to run at the weekend and still do, a good longer run on a Saturday, there's a couple of reasons, because I find that I've got more time at the weekend, so I'm able to kind of relax a little bit. I'm able to enjoy the run a little bit more. I'm maybe not thinking as much about, work or general kind of life stresses. And I also find it puts me in an incredibly good mood. So training and doing that on a Saturday morning, again, it releases a lot of endorphins, sometimes even on a Saturday evening. I do that and I feel really good. Also means that Saturday is my highest output day. So it means that I can effectively have more calories on Saturday, which works incredibly well, as you can imagine, because Saturdays are like where most people are going to want to enjoy something a little bit higher in calories as well. So this is a training split that I recommend for most people. You could effectively do 3 weight sessions per week and 2 runs. You don't have to do 4. You could effectively do, 5 weight sessions and 1 run. Like, there's loads of different ways you can do it. And ultimately, it depends on really what your goal is. Like if you're wanting to just run because you enjoy it alongside and there's no real kind of ambition of wanting to hit a certain time or, get to a certain distance with your run, then, you can be a little bit more relaxed about how you do it. If you're like me and you are working towards performance goals where you're wanting to increase your times, then effectively I would, use some kind of training split that's got a little bit more strategy behind it, which is kind of like the one that I've just talked about there. Then we need to look at the nutritional side of things, which is super important, no matter what the goal is. So the way that I like to set nutrition up is effectively, if you're going to do something like this, I don't think being in a calorie deficit is going to be really that optimal. Okay, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to be consuming a lower amount of food. You're not going to be able to facilitate, potentially muscle growth as much. You're not going to be able to facilitate, as many calories towards the performance aspect of your running. So it's just not going to be great. I mean, it doesn't matter if that's still what you decide that you want to do. If you really enjoy running and you're, still trying to get leaner, I personally will still keep this in, even though I'm about to go into a dieting phase. But I always wouldn't say it's optimal. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. I think that if you're more of a beginner and you're starting out, I personally wouldn't do this straight away. I would actually get probably into the shape that you want to get to first and get the calories a little bit higher, because a nutritional approach towards this is going to work a lot better if you're at maintenance or you're potentially in a calorie surplus and you're actually, eating slightly more calories than what you burn. So you're able to gain some muscle as well. Calorie deficit can be quite tough anyway. It can be quite taxing. If you're then doing quite high amounts of cardio, intense cardio alongside that as well, it can be quite tough. So the way that I would set my nutrition up towards this kind of approach, if I was trying to get fitter, if I was trying to improve composition and stay in shape, effectively, I would probably eat at maintenance, which is what I've been doing already, as I say, very slightly above maintenance, which for me is kind of about 3,500. When I was hitting it hard a few months ago, I was eating about 4,000 calories per day. I was trying to build muscle at the same time, but I was also running while I was doing the split that I've just mentioned there. And that amount of calories for me was perfect in terms of seeing the kind of growth in both those areas. In terms of how we split those calories up, so that we're going to want to make sure we're consuming a diet that's high in protein. We're going to want to consume a diet that's got a decent amount of carbohydrates in it as well. But we also don't want to neglect the healthy fats. So we want to get a nice mix of everything in there. Protein is super important because this is essentially going to keep you nice and full, but it's also going to ensure that you're able to recover from your workouts. You're going to be able to build muscle. You're going to be able to recover from your running as well. So it's super important that you hit at least 1 gram of protein per pound of your body weight, or ideal body weight if you find that feels like quite a lot of protein that you need to get in. Now, carbs are going to be super important. This is our body's fuel source. So unless you want to get completely fat adapted, which I wouldn't recommend for this kind of approach, then you're going to want to make sure you consume calories around the workout windows as well. If you train in the morning first thing, before you go to bed, you're going to want to make sure you get a decent amount of carbohydrates on there as well that will almost sit on you overnight. So you don't want to neglect carbohydrates. Typically foods like sweet potato, rice, oats, these are better sources of carbohydrates that your body's going to respond to a lot better. Effectively, it's going to give you a lot more fuel to your workouts. The fat side of things, you can have anywhere really between kind of 25, maybe 30, 35% of your diet, which is going to be consumed of healthy fats. Now, these are super important. They make us feel good. They're great for our hormones. They give us energy again. So we want to ensure that we're not neglecting these. This is going to be things like nuts, nut butters. This is going to be eggs. This is going to be dairy, certain meats as well, which are going to be higher in fat. Oils, really, really good sources like this should be within our diet as well. And then what I would typically do is at the weekend on a Saturday, when I put my highest and biggest bout of exercise, I would potentially put more calories towards this day. So when I'm going to have a kind of off-plan meal, I'll effectively eat an extra 500, an extra kind of, 1,000 calories on a Saturday, because I've done a 10K run, which is what I normally do on a Saturday, anywhere between 10, maybe a little bit more sometimes. Then that 10 kilometers is effectively, going to burn a relatively high amount of calories, not ridiculous, but it's going to mean that I'm going to want to potentially eat a few of those calories back and just enjoy myself a bit on a Saturday anyway, and maybe eat a little bit more food. So I would typically set your week up so that Saturday is just a higher calorie day in general, where you can essentially go and enjoy that meal out or that takeaway, knowing that you've had, or you've done quite a high bout of exercise that morning or in the afternoon. And in terms of supplementation, so the real kind of most important ones when it comes to a hybrid approach and in terms of actually maintaining your muscle mass is going to be things like protein supplements, which will work incredibly well. If you can get all your protein hit from food, then fantastic. That's also going to be fine. But for a lot of people, I think that having some kind of protein supplement to use every now and then can be extremely effective in terms of just getting that intake a little bit higher. So I personally use, whey protein supplements, and I will use them maybe at 1 to 2 scoops per day just to make sure I'm hitting my intake. So that's something that you would want to recommend using as well. If you want to kind of be a little bit cleaner, you can go for the more hydrolyzed whey, the isolate wheys, which are just going to be more kind of good or better quality protein, better quality dairy that will go into those. The other big thing that we want to really focus on in terms of performance is our hydration, potentially things like caffeine as well. But hydration is super important, especially if you live in a country like I do where it's super, super hot. We want to make sure that we're able to go into the sessions knowing that we're hydrated. So sodium levels are in a good place. And effectively, this is where we're going to use supplements like, hydration tablets, like the SIS tablets that we get a lot of our clients to use. These are going to be extremely important. You just want to pop these electrolytes. You want to use these for your running, and you want to make sure you're hydrated throughout. And if you're going for longer runs, I'd even recommend you take some electrolytes with you as well, so that you can obviously kind of rebalance whilst you're actually running too. So that's super important to kind of consider. Caffeine can be used again in terms of actually giving you a bit more energy. It can definitely improve performance before your sessions, improve performance before your runs. I run a lot better when I've got caffeine inside of me, but you don't want to have that too late in the day, and you would essentially want to cut that off, really no later than beyond 2 p.m. potentially. The final thing to touch on, which is arguably probably the most important, and this is something that a lot of people neglect, is the rest and the recovery aspect of this entire approach. This is taxing, this is hard. You're doing 2 intense runs per week, potentially 1 5K, 1 10K at the weekend. You're hitting weights hard 4 days per week using big compound exercises. This is hard on your body, okay? This is going to lead to a lot of fatigue. This is going to lead to what needs to be, a lot of recovery purposes that need to be implemented. So what we need to think about is having time when we are just relaxing. Like Sunday, for me, is always a rest day. I don't train Sunday when I'm doing this. I don't feel like can train. I want to relax. I want to, be able to really recover, so I'm ready to smash the week. Okay, we don't need to be doing something every single day. I think it's good to have at least one day off where we are fully off and relaxed and ready to go. Other things that I think can be super effective for recovery, we've got obviously things like cold water treatment. A lot of people are doing ice baths and things like that at the moment. That can work really well. Something else that's great for recovery as well is just simply moving more, getting more steps in. Okay, you actually being active and moving around is going to help a lot when it comes to DOMs and when it comes to fatigued legs after running. So we want to still make sure we're hitting our 10,000 steps at least, or even maybe a little bit less than that sometimes as well, to really promote that recovery and just make sure we're staying active and on top of that as well. So make sure that you train hard, also make sure that you recover hard as well. You get good quality sleep every night, around 7 to 9 hours, as this is going to really help you. And if you're really serious about making good gains and improving this, then you're going to want to avoid alcohol as much as you can too, because this is going to massively affect your body's ability to recover, and it's going to affect your results too, and strength and all the kind of stuff that goes into it. So anyway, guys, this is effectively how I would balance my resistance training, my weights, with running as well. If you follow this approach, if you use what I've spoken about in this video, you're going to be able to build muscle, you're going to be able to stay in shape, you're going to be able to stay lean, you're going to be able to look fantastic, but you're also going to be able to run and be fit and not just be this gym bro that struggles to move around and can't even get up the stairs, and effectively isn't really what I would say the kind of pinnacle of fitness looks like. We want to be able to have it all, and effectively this approach and using a kind of hybrid method now, I believe, is going to get you to that next level with your fitness. So I hope this video helps. Make sure you smash the like button if it has, make sure you hit the bell notifications so you're notified for the next time that I post. Subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.